So Joel has given this time one over to these two people. So perhaps we could start off with them introducing themselves. So we have a vague idea of who the newcomers are. Yeah. Sorry. And perhaps we can do a really quick reminder of who the rest of the people are. So maybe do a introduction round on double speed and
really?
get on with where we were.
Me again?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Pinar. I'm a sound designer, an artist, and I'm working as a sound designer during daytime, and I also am part of the Soundings collective, Thijs and Mark from here. And yeah, that's me.
Next.
Okay, I'm Robin, also a sound artist and composer. And that was it in full speed.
Right, next.
Well, also sound artist, Julius at SKU.
Mark, are you wait for this? I'm Mark, I'm also a sound artist, designer, educator. Yeah, that's about it.
I'm Marike. I'm a composer and sound designer. I make electroacoustic music and collaborate with choreographers, dancers, theater makers.
Hi, I'm Alex Nowitz. I'm a composer and singer, performer for the last 25 years, and since 2007 I constantly have the chance to constantly visit Stein to develop instruments for my vocal performances. I've developed 2 instruments so far, and the last one, and that's the reason why I'm here basically, is to enhance the existing instrument, which is called strophonium. And some of you might have been at the last year in September. Where was that?
Buttons Pleasures?
Yeah, and that's where I played, and some of you have been there, so that's me.
Me, theater, cinema, music, and technician during the day. Next.
Right. I'm Thijs. I'm one of the main organizers of these think tank sessions. I'm a sound artist, also at the KMT. Do a lot of work with sound art, installations, and performances.
Hi, I'm Lawton Hall. I'm from the United States, if you couldn't tell. And I'm a composer. Do acoustic and electroacoustic music, and a lot of work with reactive video, jitter type things. My day job is working in arts management. I work at a very small art museum. Just kind of a couple hours north of Chicago, in the Midwestern United States. That's me.
I'm Shari. I'm finishing up my Masters of Art Management, and yeah, I think that's it. Not much more to say right now.
I'm Walter. I'm a visual artist based in Rotterdam, and I run the new media lab at the Worm. We also organize events and workshops and run productions and
I'm Jarl. I run the Fiber Festival together with a team of 8 persons. We're a young festival concentrating on up-and-coming artists within audiovisual art and network art.
Alright, so we're gathered here to talk about the consequences of the budget cuts in the cultural sector. And well, since we're here with lots of different backgrounds and lots of different viewpoints on what's happening so far, before the break, actually touched upon quite a lot of insights and different ways to deal with having less funds, ways to buy time, way to get in touch to new funds, maybe connect to crowds. And I believe we basically took a break at about a time when Pinara was trying to decipher some input from their.
It's gone. They've been talking about all kinds of stuff. So
Oh,
I think if it's important, they'll pop it out.
They have their own concepts.
So
there.
yeah, maybe we can sort of see if we can find a sort of focus point and maybe dive a little bit deeper into some of the subjects. So does anybody have any points that came up in the first part that would be interesting to maybe explore further?
Well, there was this point where you were talking about creating a dedicated following, a group of people who really like your stuff. And I think that's also maybe one of Worm's problems, maybe, that because you do so much different stuff as well. Could you say you do different stuff? I mean, it's all kind of oddball, but it is a bit different, maybe. And
It's
maybe
very different.
yeah,
It's
but
not-
maybe
it's
it's
not
also
oddball,
maybe it's also hard to create a following because of that.
Yeah, but that's a very vague discussion. I mean, the one thing that you have to take into account is that nowadays, when you organize a concert or anything, one of the main reasons for people not showing up is really that they don't have money to show up. Also, that's the reality of the situation in the Netherlands at the moment, and all throughout Europe actually. So
It's maybe also that there is quite a lot out there. Maybe
Choice.
playing devil's advocate here. I think every weekend in the Netherlands, I can go to experimental music.
But
No
is that
doubt.
new?
What?
Is that new? There was also always a sort of high density of festivals and things, I think. But I think it has to do mainly with what I see around here is mainly the money thing. Is that people don't have this amount of money to buy tickets. The ticket price have gone up.
Yeah, but also there's so much stuff going on that if I choose to spend my money, I have probably 10 different things I could spend it on. And I only choose one, of course, but there's a lot of stuff to shop around.
some of my colleagues even suggest that, for example, festivals are really killing the cultural sector, especially in terms of the music. Because if you look at the Rotterdam situation, so the city, for example, gives us 400,000 euros, but they give the same amount to Motel Mosaic. We have to run 300 days of programming for that. Motel Mosaic is 1 weekend. So that's just one example of a shift in interest or priority there. When we were looking at these outcomes of the funding applications and what was decided, who gets what, I mean, you can discuss all you want with people who are very knowledgeable about these sectors and stuff, but you cannot really figure out who thought of that, you know? Like 1 weekend, 400,000, 300 days, 400,000. It's a bit weird.
Anything else?
Well, hearing you all talk about this, I feel like it's interesting because I feel like the situation in the United States is about maybe 10 or 15 years ahead of this point, and that, I mean, absolutely nobody has money. In the early 90s, all federal arts funding in the US basically was just slashed. I mean, artists are not appealing to the government for funding at all. I mean, it's there, but it's going to really large institutions. So smaller little institutions are having trouble. And again, I feel like it's a similar situation. There's just this tons of talent. I mean, I'd say more talent now than when the funding was slashed, perhaps. And just like so many things going on. I don't have much to contribute or anything really productive to say along those lines. I just think it's,
But does it maintain?
people are, I think the funny thing about artists or people like me in the U.S. is that everyone always say, oh, I'm a composer, I'm a painter, I'm a playwright, whatever, and then they say, but my day job is this.
Yeah.
Thing. I don't know how much that's the case here, but I mean
That's how people were.
Yeah.
So
And I'm very fortunate that you know, my day job is in the arts. I mean, I feel very fortunate for that. You know, I feel like it has resulted in people being like incredibly passionate. You know, I have like friends who are working like really shitty warehouse jobs, but then running these like incredible new music concerts. And like, if you saw all the publicity that they're doing and all the, you know, mailings that they put out and everything, you'd think it was just like totally professionally run, but they're supporting it entirely by their like, you know, 9-to-5 day job. And, again, I don't know how productive that is to what you were the topic of this discussion, but that's just my thought.
I think very it might be sort of like
I
a
think
mirror.
it's like this in most of the world. No? That
Not
artists
here.
have a day job. I mean, I always had a day job.
Yeah.
Basically. No? It's not like that.
But at some point, you want to make money with your art, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And what are the possibilities for that? How are these friends of you who are doing these amazing things? Are they ending up making their living out of it, or is it 1% who?
It's a very small percentage. I mean, you know, yeah, I mean, you know, unfortunately, the unfortunate situation, and again, I don't know what it's like here in the Netherlands, but you know, academia, going into a teaching position or something is kind of the safe route for most composers. I mean, there are many very talented composers who just assume that that's their career path, that the way they're actually going to get a job with health insurance and a retirement fund is to become a professor someday. And often that means they have to go to some little college or university in some very rural place, and they're very separated from sort of the cultural dialogue. I feel like a lot of the talent gets kind of sucked out of this more central locations as a result. Does that answer your question?
Don't know. But
I mean, if do people make it? You know, people my age, mid-20s, I don't know if they're going to make it or not. I mean, people 10 years ahead of me, I can point to certain people and say, yeah, they made it, but...
What is exactly making it in this case? Like,
I mean, actually, like, you know, like paying your living expenses.
yeah, but how do you do that? Like, you're not becoming a celebrity unless you're like Damien Hirst, whatever, which I really utterly hate. But anyway, but like, is it like being? Let's take the extremes because they're easy to give examples. Like, you become a sort of a really mainstream celebrity person, artist, and everyone knows you, so you can basically pull anything. Any kind of shit, and the people will buy it. Is it, or is it making it just somehow? What is it like? Do you manage to get your work in museums, galleries, or do you mean like you? What is it exactly that you? How do you make it if you're not a celebrity, or if you're really like a celebrity in an art scene? What is it? What is it that you make it? Especially when there aren't any more collectors. And if you're making music, how do people collect your art?
Are you asking in the United States?
Like, or anywhere, like how do you sell your sound art? Can you sell it like a painting? I mean, these are basic questions, but like, how do you make it as an artist, you know, professional artist, whatever you call it. I mean, I'm curious about it for myself as well, that's why I'm asking actually.
But is it more like performance then?
Well, in this case, for music, I mean, you can be specific. If you want to go from the music performance, are you a performer as well, right?
A little bit. Mostly,
Okay,
I'm mostly just writing for performers now.
Okay, so that could be your. For example, if you take you as a case, you making it would be.
I'm getting enough commissions from performers to pay my rent and buy my food.
Yeah, but then it's like again coming up from outside, like people come to you for work, so you're actually freelancing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I mean, and my museum job is part time, and
But it's not like you make a piece and then you're able to sell it to whatever. Like you made it from your own for your own motivation with nothing else, no commission was.
I've been very fortunate. I mean, I feel like I've been more fortunate than a lot of my peers. I mean, no, I've been approached by strangers who've tracked me down on Facebook or whatever and said, "Hey, I heard this piece for trombone you wrote. I play euphonium. Will you write me a piece?" You know, it's happened. You know, it's not like I'm, you know, rolling in money from it.
No, I get it. But it's just that's the final.
We'll be fine.
That's the,
euphonium stuff.
that's the thing about it. Like when you're talking about like freelancing or commission, if you want to call it whatever, then you have to focus on other things. Like to make it, you have to focus on your business. Like you have how you're selling and how you're communicating, how you're making your network. It's kind of a different kind of way of thinking.
It's a business.
So yeah, it's a business, and I'm not saying art and business are completely different. I mean, they are completely exclusive. Is that the word? But I mean, we tend to view them like that. I don't know. The artists are pretty clueless when it comes to business. Or at least that's what I've been seeing, including myself. I've been trying to change my mind around a bit, like trying to think differently, but it's hard. What I'm trying to say is this: then, if you're not thinking about business, then your option is a day job or whatever, unless you want to focus on your own company style or name or whatever, like a service keeper or whatever, or not.
Nah, this is I mean, if you go for if you try to maintain your own integrity as an artist and just try to do your work as best as possible, and also, but that's then the key maybe. I'm not sure, but be modest about it and not think in business terms and having to be some kind of super.
No, you don't have to. But what I'm trying to say is like, what is? That's why I asked. What is making it? That's basically what I asked.
Business perspective, but not necessarily. You know,
Yeah,
because that's the thing that.
If I just as an example to go from my personal from my personal work as an artist next to all the organizing work that I do for work, is that for me it's really simple. Like everywhere I go to do a show, everywhere I go where I get a commission, or I mean I always the only thing I ever did was try to do the work as good as that people would invite me again.
Yeah.
And this has always kept me rolling, you know, up to a point where I basically had to turn stuff down. And I mean, if that's a business model, it's probably the dumbest thing I've ever thought of. But that works for me, you know. It's not so.
Perhaps more people should apply that.
Yeah, I mean, I must say that nowadays, you see, I've also worked as a teacher in different academies here in the Netherlands, and I must say that I think this emphasis on entrepreneurship for artists is nowadays, I think it's a bit exaggerated. You really, you don't have to be some business wizard to be successful as an artist. You have to make good art.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do.
But I do feel that there's this sort of gap between very, very large pool of upcoming or talents or people that want to get into the game, and then there's this group who's already there, who's touring the world with work and doing exhibitions and stuff like that. And these organizations like Stein and like Worm have felt to me always like this sort of, and Fiverr Festival as well, by the way, are these sort of ramps that you can use, like to get your work out there, to get exposed to the network and to meet people and to take that step from being like this person that had a lot of cool creative ideas but no place to exhibit or no place to develop it. And Stein seems like this place where you can take the time and take the resources to get to that professional level and get on. And I'm sort of afraid that with these budget cuts that layer is being eliminated, so that you only have like this pool that doesn't know how to get up, and this top layer that thinks it's all fine because they're there, and they don't really necessarily want that much extra competition.
Yeah.
And it just gets increasingly more difficult to cross that border.
I agree, actually.
I think what we do with the festival is a little leap, not a big leap as time Warm can provide over a long time. We try to do small leaps, so maybe 2 or 3 within 1 year. And I think it's interesting if more people step into the area between the big layer and the starting area to do sort of meta leaps. And if more people would do that and more smaller festivals, or I think that's interesting to make the connection between like the bottom and the top layer. I think there can be more experimented and there's more action in that layer. I think for the yeah.
But
What is
maybe to get back to one of the implications or consequences of the budget cuts that we're facing is that speaking about Worm and also Stein is that what you're talking about I fully agree with, but it usually also works in terms of reputation. So for example, if you're like you're here now for 2 weeks, I just heard, and I mean the cool thing about that, if you can put a small working period at Stein on your resume, that in certain circles that really resonates. People will really be like, wow, you developed that at Stein. Well, we've not seen it yet, but we might give it a shot already on that basis.
Well, what in particular, I think it's important to discuss, what in particular about Worm, and I haven't been to Worm yet, I'm going to go while I'm here, but what in particular about Worm and Stein like make it that midway point? Because it seems like that midway point is essential, and that's what's lacking. I mean, that's what's lacking, I feel like, in so much. It's like, it's a non-academic place where you can kind of prove yourself when you don't have a solid resume yet.
Yeah, but
what about these places that has that?
Well, I think for one, Stein and Worm are both always looking for the new stuff. And on the other hand, they have a huge respect in the established world. So they're in between on that level, that they're both really recognized for being places where new talent is brewing and where there's always something interesting to find, but still is accessible for people who just graduated or are just coming out of the art colleges. And that's why I feel there's this bridge function.
But then one of the main dangers for Worm at this point into moving towards a situation where we become some kind of rental barn, you know, we cannot fund our core programming anymore, and we have to open up our space for people to bring in their own money and their own events, and we can do some kind of curating on it, you know, saying like, well, your thing's not so good, but yours is slightly better and you have a little bit more money, so go ahead. I mean, it will destroy that reputation that I just mentioned, you know, it will, like that's also a bit doomy scenario, but maybe give that 5 or 10 years and you will get, probably already with 5 years, you will get people saying like, well, but when they were still really, when they were more uncompromising in their programming, that's when it's still, the name still meant something or whatever. It's,
well, I know from, for instance, Waterfront, it's also a Rotterdam place, they reopened under new management, and their reputation was gone in one concert. Just obliterated in one go.
Such a shame also, because they're like, for them having to, it's another one of these typical Rotterdam situations, a place that moved and tried to get ahead, but then didn't.
But for instance,
yeah, what I like to contribute is that you guys now, I guess, have to find new ways of collaborating with other institutions and with another strategy of getting funding money, I guess. So far, concerning, I only know the situation of Stein. Stein was until now, I mean, the most luxurious place I've ever met in that respect, because first of all, it is an institution which is neither academic nor completely subversive. It's on that level completely unique. So you get both what you need. You need as an artist to develop your ideas. You need the technical support, but you need also the ground to develop your plants, so to speak, and to water them. And that's what I consider very luxurious. And I was very fortunate that I could join in this period still to develop those ideas. But I'm coming from Berlin, from Germany, where there is, like Berlin, for instance, is completely bankrupt. You know, they still have 3 opera houses. You know, working in the same city, but concerning new media art, new ways of evolving stuff, was constantly cut down. But things are still evolving because of people creating their own kind of clubs. And there was this and it's still going on, like house concerts, where people meet, like what we do here, gathering and talking about it. They just present their music. It's like house concerts. Now, next time we meet at my living room, so to speak. And some of those musicians might play the next time at März Festival, which is a huge new music festival, which is part of the Berliner Festspiele. So they have lots of money, you know. So what I'm trying to say at the end of my thought is there is still money out there. It's just the way how we kind of are part of this cake. You know, so far the Netherlands and the Dutch situation was just luxurious. It's just not. It probably won't be there anymore, right? So what we have to learn to find our ways to grab a piece of the cake, and also to find maybe other ways of maybe a little, you know, develop a way of thinking in commercial, on a commercial level. I don't like the business plan kind of thing. I mean, that's not going to work out to me. I mean, that's even a contradiction. But to commercialize your outcome in a way, you know. I said to myself, for instance, at some point, I'm not going to play gigs anymore if it's not more than this and that, you know. It's just you have to make up your rules and find your way to grab a piece of cake.
Also, that things might be interesting. You mentioned like institutions working together in a more like creating networks of institutions more. Maybe that.
But the only thing about it, I mean, this really sounds like, oh, when you just say it, like, sounds like, yay, get together, do stuff. But it's like institution in itself kind of a much more slow working thing instead of an individual. So
that's why I was curious to hear about NIMC, because what they were suggesting as an alternative for basically being closed down, collaborating with P2 and today's art and smart project space, and also but last I heard, also those new initiatives all got down. So
yeah,
at least they didn't get.
I've been hearing rumors as well, but yeah, it's really a shame that NIM couldn't be here.
Yeah.
So
but
yeah.
Who are you talking about?
The Nederlands Institute for Media Art, basically, right?
Yeah.
It's,
They were working.
It's not too far from here.
on
I
three.
collaborated with them for a few projects.
And you were talking about Remco.
Nim,
No.
Nim and
Okay.
I think we're working on three different things. One was the collection, but the collection was saved from.
Yeah, there was gonna be forehand Montevideo or
Yeah.
something, and then there was.
There was KX. It's going to be like for all the new, all the media art and digital art, sort of a platform and a sort of museum for the newest art in The Hague. I think that's one plan. And the other plan was this NASA together with Smart Project Space.
Yeah.
And it should be also a sort of platform also to connect with the younger generation who don't have any places to go except from festivals. And that's quite an interesting thought, I think. So I don't know what the situation is, but
the last one you mentioned for sure did not get the funding they asked for, and I think also Smart Project Space is closing. That's something.
But I think it's kind of weird to discuss this without anybody from NIM
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
But I think the general idea of collaborating between institutions might be really interesting.
How does it help financially though? I mean,
Well, I can imagine different organizations have different pools of money.
Yeah, there's an example in our place where our film programmer also works for the Rotterdam Film Festival, and now there's this idea that he does more film programming in collaboration with the festival, because the festival wanted to have structural programming throughout the year also. Yeah, I mean that looks to be quite promising actually, and also then some of our programmers, maybe myself included, will be hired by different parties or institutes to run programming, and then will be paid on a freelance basis or whatever. I mean, yeah, these things are also going on in Rotterdam.
I think this is quite interesting because a place like this and also Worm is, for a big part, it's built on experience and craftsmanship. And when you're inside an institution, it always is it's kind of property of the institution. And this makes it a bit more external maybe, but it sounds kind of positive.
It could also maybe connect audiences. For instance, if you have a really local following and you start collaborating more with, for instance, a Rotterdam-Amsterdam collaboration, then people from both cities might get more into contact with.
That's so bad to say while in Amsterdam. I mean, you cannot get people from Amsterdam out of Amsterdam.
Yeah, that's actually true.
I did travel from Bali to Def.
Just to be sure, I'm not from Amsterdam.
Okay.
And, not everybody here is, but it is interesting to see if you could maybe make use of each other's audiences and create a bigger following that way.
And maybe
I've had people like when running events in Rotterdam, I get sometimes responses from people from Amsterdam 2 weeks later. It's like, oh, but that's not gonna happen in Amsterdam. Like, no, sorry, it was in Rotterdam. Yeah, you should have been there. It's not in Amsterdam. I mean, it's funny like that, but over the whole, I mean, I know also from the Netherlands as a whole. I mean, people are, especially for the more difficult stuff, you know, it's people. I don't know. Dutch people don't travel so easily. Like
No, that's
for example,
yeah,
in
it's
the US,
really
you just-
weird. Like you have
That's
this small tiny land.
Yeah, exactly.
But even that doesn't.
Yeah. So,
well, yeah, I was gonna bring that up because, like, you know, where I live in the U.S., I'm about as far from New York and California as you can get, and those are like the cultural centers of the United States, basically. And I've found that, you know, a lot of times people in New York and California scoff at what I'm doing in the Midwestern United States, but it's almost maybe playing devil advocate to what you just said, but like it's getting a local following is also equally important. You know, like that there is something here that's, you know, uniquely in this one place, and I'm sure that, I mean, the situation here is just totally different. I mean, you know, these cities are a train ride apart, whereas it's, you know, takes 2 days of driving for me to get to New York. But like, Yeah, it's a different situation, but there's something to be said for also creating a niche market, maybe. I also think the
4 days for a concert.
yeah, I think that in terms of like creating a niche market, that's one thing where in terms of like the business model, like a musician or artists being business people is, you know, we have like by our very nature we have like a brand identity. You know, we have something that that like identifies us and separates us as individuals, our artwork, and that's something that like other business people have to like create artificially, or they have to have a design department or something do that for them. So we already, you know,
we already have that. We just don't know how to.
We just don't
put it out.
We don't have a finance department, right? You know, we don't have accountants, but you know, we got that.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know.
By the way, I mean, this is going to require the stretch maybe, but Gleb been telling me online about combining this commercial or slightly more mainstream stuff with more experimental things, so sort of mixing spaces, stages, whether it's a festival or as an actual building or whatever, under one name. So you might suggest, I said, what about not being non-compromising or whatever, because I thought you would say that. but on
the other hand, you mentioned the idea of having first a noise concert and a club night right after and having a mingle.
Exactly, Gleb was saying the same thing. So maybe you guys, I mean, you're also actually also doing that in a way, that they're very danceable, whatever club night, and next to it quite
we try to make a script.
Mix mash it, yeah.
It's really hard. Like I also tried like experimental nights and then go from like less I would say less popular, less open music into more dance music, and also for your experience as a visitor, so that if you have like a very experimental noise concert and then right after it the first I don't know sidechain electro beat comes in, then your whole experience is gone.
Well, that's all comes down to experience design sort of thing, actually, in a way. But I mean, I'm just trying. Yeah, okay, Gleb. But what I'm trying to say, or what he's trying to say, I guess, is just like using this as a way to extend the target group or like not a niche group of people, but like a bit more larger, so attract people slowly, introduce them to things that are out of their comfort zone, etc. I mean, it's a really idealistic, naive way of looking at it, but maybe there has to be.
We've been thinking about doing, for instance, a festival together with 3 other festivals in Utrecht, and doing less ourselves, but as a whole doing a really good thing, and bringing in the money for the thing you want to do, so that creates maybe a very special festival that doesn't take a lot of personal energy or money. So that's something we would like to examine maybe in the I don't know, if we don't want to get bigger, but maybe we want to get bigger with somebody else.
But that again comes down to collaborating or partnering.
It really feels like we participated in this Gold Fest just early this month, where different spaces were offered for collaborations of collectives. And while creatively that was like really interesting, and it was really cool to get a space where you can just experiment. Financially,
hell.
Oh boy! I was yes.
Were they separate? Were there like 3 separate, or 4 or 5 separate?
Although there were 6 separate places, when in each place there were 2 collectives that collaborated on something. I think one of the biggest problems was time, by the way, because it was really short notice and very quick and fast. But yeah, that's also something like time. To get something like that working, you probably need
it takes a lot of time.
A lot of time to establish those contacts and to be able to communicate that to an audience, that they know what's happening, and sort of get the urge to actually go there.
Well,
bit of an organizational issue, I think.
Yeah.
If you get it right, and you get the right amount of time and the right space and right people next to each other, I think you can do quite a lot with collective things. But you have to be very serious about
This
it.
was kind of a crazy idea how it started though. I was also involved in the organization. But they had this idea in February of just starting something in a wharf cellar in Utrecht, and it just kind of went crazy. So this is not like a real good example of how you can organize, but it is very good. Exactly, and that's what I thought was so cool about it, and that's why I wanted to be part of this organization, is because you have so many ideas and so many thoughts, but just do it. And this little thing, because we're talking so much here, I really want to see if things like this are going to actually be put into practice. So I don't know how we're going to follow this up, but I have been in so many talks about things, like throughout my school or study career or whatever, and it just stops there.
Yeah.
And then you have a drink, and then okay, see you later, and then you don't see anything happen.
Yeah.
And I really would like to see something happen, or just something written, or drawn, or something. I don't know. Like,
well, let me take a shot, because it was interesting with how you just mentioned how within your organization you talked about spending less energy but more focus on what you're really good at or what you want to do, and this is like exactly like how now within Worm people are talking about indeed wanting to spend less energy on all kinds of administrative blah and trying to focus more. So for example, the idea of keeping the space open on a very low level way and offering it to whoever has the best idea or however to look at that. That also means that the crew that will still be running the building is like it kind of comes with the building, you know. So you basically have a whole venue for all kinds of art, and it's just readily available, you know. And it's run by so the idea is that it's run by people that with very little energy, they know exactly what to do. Someone opens the bar, someone opens the door, someone turns on the lights, you know. So that's I also see this because when I hear you from your organization pretty much saying exactly the same thing, then
well, I think
maybe you should come over sometime.
We
can argue.
And I think it's different as we are a festival that we do it like once, and maybe the idea was to mix up 3 organizations and do one very good and focusing, but having a space to stretch a period of time, it's different. I think so. That's a different thing, but it's quite interesting to and I think we have a feeling that we want to do more small things in a couple of years, and maybe not doing like for instance Stripe is now going for a second year term, and Sonic X already has done it a long time. But you get really focused on something that's really good, make a publication, make a statement. It's interesting to think in those kind of ways on the big things, and maybe can do a lot of small things, maybe together with Warm or.
I think also because I mean, even though I really respect and appreciate indeed doing this biennial thing like Sonic X, for example, but it would be like mentioned earlier, if everything becomes festival and so incidental, you know.
Then it becomes as exclusive as that sort of upper crust stuff that you're talking about. You know, who can get into the festival, who can.
But then also to bring up branding again, like as an underground club, for example, you cannot compete with the branding of big festivals, but they would still get the bands that you also want to show. Somehow. Like we have this a lot with Paradiso, for example, or with upcoming bands that for us something gets too big really quickly, you know. If a band becomes, even when we're already talking about booking, like if their record gets a bit more exposure just in the weeks before coming to us, they might still cancel and move to a bigger venue within the Netherlands, because the competition is really fierce. And there's like numerous examples of this also. Like for a smaller venue trying to book really upcoming stuff, also the upcoming stuff can come up a bit too quick and you just lose them basically. It's a pity.
Yeah, I found it very interesting what you said, like this whole festival culture, like really competing with the ongoing progress of institutes.
Yeah, it's
I think it's-
populism in a way.
Well,
Not to make it so political,
Yeah.
but yeah.
But the same way what we try to do is make it extend the festival a bit more. We have like an online, just a website, and we can invite writers to write about artists, developments, everything what we would like. We try to extend after the festival and before the festival. We try to follow artists, catch up on them, interview them, and extend the period of value actually longer than only this festival. And I think I think we want to experiment more with this kind of that the festival not only is like okay, hey, party, and when you're gone, but it stretches from one festival to another or other events or events that more becomes more a network kind of.
But there are some real differences also between festivals' ways of working and 24/7 all year round
Yeah.
places,
Yeah, true.
which is I think mostly in development. I mean, festival is basically okay. This is it. This is the end product, and here it is. But the whole process of creating art is, could much more be seen as things that happen in residencies and in,
we're only showing if you really black and white. We're only
if
showing
it isn't made,
presenting art.
can be presented on the festival.
Yeah.
Well, again, talking about like a middle ground between the big festival, big annual festival, and you know, just the day-to-day operations. Like I'm close friends with somebody who runs a monthly event in Brooklyn called the Performers Forum, and it's this very informal sort of salon-style concert followed by a discussion, and it's what he does. I mean, he's very good at like online networking and promoting it all on networking. But then what I love about him is that he, after somebody has presented at Performers Forum, as he calls it, he will continually like post new things that they're doing. So it's just like, okay, so you go to one Performers Forum, you think it's cool, so you follow their Facebook page, whatever. You're finding out about, you're staying up to date with people who might have presented there 9 months ago. I don't know if that would exactly be possible with an annual festival, I mean, because it's such a long time between things, but still, you know, trying to like, you know, you kind of the festivals kind of represent those artists to a certain degree.
Yeah, we catch up with artists like a year later. We did 2 festivals, and Oli Sørensen, a Canadian video mapping artist, we caught up with him just before the second festival and interviewed him about his work and how his work is evolving, and if the festival brought him any good in Europe. And so it's very small, it's very intimate, because we don't have a big range, but we try to follow artists and not being an agency, but maybe acting in between, sort of like an agency and a festival. I don't know.
I would like to have some input also from the other side of the table, because the discussion has been shifting to
I was
the side.
quite okay, I would say we were listening.
But I was kind of wondering, since as an artist I come across numerous opportunities to play, but almost no way to monetize that. And I think all of you have been performing and been playing in places probably unpaid or underpaid for travel expenses. Maybe I really have the feeling that is also a really sort of a hindering block of getting to the next step and professionalizing. That by the time you ask money for playing gigs, you basically, there's nothing out there. Unless you have, there's this empty, I feel this empty void, like after you start asking money for gigs.
Bubble pop.
It's like, okay, maybe you can think or elaborate on that, or have some examples, or...
I think we have kind of two cultures going on at the time. Like one is from the politics, which is a really rational culture, and it's from this side. These ideas come like art should be measurable, sellable. You should have kind of a business plan about it. It's very political idea. They have how the culture works at this point. Like we don't have any money, but you should be really glad to play here because it's a big venue and it's very honorable. So there's lots of prestige. So then you have this like unmeasurable art, but there's no money because it's. And then these are two cultures that I kind of, they're really present at this time. And you encounter them a lot, I think, as a starting artist.
I guess it's a general question you're asking because it comes down to esteem or self-estimation, and if you say to yourself, "I'm not going to play under a certain amount," you exclude certain things, and you're looking for other opportunities.
Yeah, I think those opportunities are definitely out there. But I'm not really one to talk because I don't really do a lot of gigs, for example. But if you're able to, if you've got an argument to ask for certain amounts of money, so for example you played at certain places, those are arguments you can use to get gigs which are better paid often. So that's one thing. I don't know if there's any other stuff you can use.
Yeah, the only thing I think is that it's really hard because it's it all depends on where you find yourself in your career and how you see yourself, and that's what he's also saying. Like when are you starting to make this decision to exclude yourself from versus non-paid gigs? Or but if we all support this culture of like
then nothing will change.
Bringing something really professional, undervalued, then you're kind of destroying your own work. So that's always the hard part in this.
So maybe we should teach students, like, okay, when you're a student, at least I think it's okay to do gigs for almost no money when you're a student, but as soon as you've
Well, I think you should get paid, at least you're like studying for several years, and you should.
Of course, but there is a period where you don't.
It's about
really
experience, and at some point proving yourself that you hold a certain type of quality that they will get from you with whatever. So just sort of becoming your own brand at the end of the day, sort of.
But should we have a certain model for this? So I'm doing a dance gig. And it's going to be this long, so I will make about this and that amount of money.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, we laugh about it, but actually that is something that you have to at some point think about. I mean, we're laughing, oh, it's business, we don't want to talk about it. I really cringed at the thought of business, thinking about money, like, I don't know how to manage. Ties know it. I mean, I've been asking most stupid questions about it. But I mean, you have to think about it. Let's not be naive. I mean, you are making craft. You're learning your craft. You're putting your hours. You're putting your years. And the only thing is that people never realize that this is a craft. And it's because we're not making it so visible. If you're not talking about it as a craft, if you're talking about this abstract spiritual experience on it, people will underestimate it.
I think, because I have a background in design, and when I started as a design, he had this book from the BNO, de Beroepsorganisatie Nederlandse Ontwerpers.
Okay, that's a mouthful.
And this book was exactly like a logo is this amount of hours, takes this amount of money.
Oh wow.
You get like a
printing industry.
All structured.
But this is applied art. This is something that has a function to function for somebody else. I think it's very hard to judge art in this way within a book.
Yeah, of course,
to
but
say like,
true. You cannot generalize it, but personally you should do it, like for yourself.
Yeah, but also again, I don't think that's even necessarily strictly business, but because like Robin was saying, also when you encounter organizers, for example, or curators that are expecting you to do your work for nothing.
Yeah,
I think you also there's also a point of common sense involved, where I think you as an artist also have a responsibility to
represents
stand up to that
exactly.
person and say like, sorry, but you cannot do this. Like, I had this recently with an exhibition where someone was actually inviting me but cancelled this in the last moment, and then for me this was problematic because I had cancelled other work because I had to travel to Turkey for this gig and all kinds of stuff related to it. And then this person in the end says like, yeah, but you shouldn't complain because the fee you would be the only one that was going to get paid. And this was an international exhibition with pretty renowned artists in it.
Wow.
And then I got into this discussion with this person. It's like, how can you
Make
run this whole
a-
exhibition and kind of make it into this statement of he was trying to make a positive statement about the fact that he was not paying anyone. I was really baffled about this.
Yeah, exactly. That's why at the end of the day, it comes to self-respect at some point, or to respect your craft or whatever you've been sort of giving your life to, and at the same time, being able to receive that respect or see that from others. And it's not just about your person, but it's about the whole, actually, the discipline or whatever, the way we are representing it.
Yeah, I really have the idea here that a lot of the times space gets more money than what's happening in space. With Warm, this is this extreme example where there's only the space and everything that's happening around it's leaving. But with almost all the gigs that I've played, it's like the artists that come there just play for scraps, but the place itself just gets the rental fee and gets probably lots of money from all the drinks and all the other stuff. And it feels like space gets money and artistic value is just okay, the artist will just play for nothing anyway.
So for us, DJs get the money, the headliners. That's where the biggest money goes. And within our festival, we kind of, because we also do the festival in Trouw, for the nightclub we also depends on a really club-based sort of crowd, and we pay a lot of money to DJs. That's probably the most, not even the space, because Trouw is a very good partner and just looks at our things like our numbers and says like, oh, this is too much, go down, and we fix it. That's okay. But these DJs and the tech they bring, and that's the biggest thing. If we can only manage without the biggest names, then we can save a lot of money for different things. But at the moment we need them.
Why is that? Where did it come from? The DJ culture gets so much money.
It's entertainment.
Because they just like, why look at Damien Hirst so much money?
It's entertainment.
Yeah. Well, DJs they keep the bar running all night.
That's the thing.
It's a celebrity thing. Also, it's a recognizable name.
Well, it
gets the crowd inside.
It's also quality because they ended up on this space because they are really good. But it's also the thing of the club. The nights, the bar running, DJs play for 6 hours, 5-6 hours. You pay them an amount of money. If you do a live set for 6 hours, it would be amazingly expensive, and you won't get any live act for 6 hours.
One thing that I think is kind of applicable is, being a DJ is like I don't want to say commodity, but it's like if you're gonna have a club, you need a DJ. Right? I mean, like, for a club event, you have to have a DJ there, right? And like, there's not that sense for people who are viewing themselves as, artists or, doing sound art or something like that, it's not like viewed as a necessity. But one thing that's been helpful for me, there's this organization in the United States called Meet the Composer, and they do some grants, like for commissioning grants for, commissioning new music and stuff like that. But how they've helped me the most is they have basically put together a guide for like approximate amounts for how much you should pay a composer for a certain piece. I mean, they just have they straight up list it as dollar amounts, like ranges of dollar amounts. And then they say like, if the composer's younger, you could maybe go on the lower end of this, or whatever. There are variables and they admit that, but then that's been extremely helpful for me because then I'm not the one saying to somebody who approaches
Just
me,
everybody knows.
you know, I'm not saying, oh, you should probably pay me $500 for this. You know, I say like, look at this chart that this professional organization came up with. This is the going rate. This is the going rate for a 10-minute long string quartet or whatever. You know, it's like it's not my rate. And there's some like it legitimizes things, and they also came up with this fantastic just template for writing contracts, which covers like all your legal bases really well, which is something that I could not do on my own necessarily. Like, just making sure that the composer gets all the rights that the composer needs, making sure that the commissioning party gets all the rights that they need, and it's basically just like a fill in the blank sort of thing. And it looks really professional, really legitimate. And when you do these things, it really makes it look like you're running a business, but you don't have to do any work for it. Really, it's just like there.
I kind of remember when Pinar and I were doing the budget for InstaLive, where at a moment we were trying to apply for some funding, and we filled in the blanks, and there are certain things that are just fixed, like we needed to order algae, that's fixed, that's just, okay, so much travel expenses, blah, 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 so much to get it here, so we note that down. Then you get to materials, and it's like, okay, we can get receipts from this, it's just, okay, it's so much. You boil that down, and then it was like, okay. Then we came to ourselves as artists, like, okay, we put in like amazing amounts of time and energy and programming and everything in that, and I was like, all right, well, from what we get left from this is like $50 for me, $50 for, and even that, like, it was like ridiculously small, and then it was, oh no, we forgot about the nails. Okay, so it's five down from my account, and it's like the human effort and all the expertise and all the stuff you put into it is just valueless because it doesn't have. Yeah, it's movable.
I might be naive enough to think that maybe we are doing this way. Like, this is maybe just this kind of personality trait that we artists all have in common, or something, that we're just not confident enough or something. I'm just gonna say it out there, like, because like what we did was, first thing, we didn't even consider cutting it from other places. We went directly for our own fees.
We started there.
What the fuck? And like, it wasn't $50 obviously, it was much more, but at the end it ended up being 1/4 of the first amount we thought of, just to fit it in the maximum budget, basically. It was like we were sacrificing ourselves. Like, we were like, okay, we want the material, we need this and this and this, like, this comes first. We can just say like, yeah, we'll do it. This is a mentality that, like, the people that make it don't have, I would say.
Well, I mean,
they just are like extremely ridiculously like, over the top. Actually, some of them.
You could be doing this for another 10 years, but then you'll also.
I will be there, right?
No, you'll be done with spending all that extra energy and not getting paid.
Yeah. No, but that's the thing. Like, is it gonna take 10 years for me to get there, or am I gonna realize it now and say like, fuck this shit? You know what I mean?
No, it really is. Like, it's a defining characteristic of artists. We view what we're doing as having value, like inherent value. Like, I mean, we view it that way. So then the money issue is after the fact. I mean, friends of ours who are in business.
But why is it decoupled in our scene? Like, seriously, why is it decoupled like that? If we're acknowledging what we do as having an inherent value, that's the value of it.
But I think to a certain extent it does have to do with that expectancy that Robin was also mentioning, that if there's enough people around that are expecting you to work for free, then you're more inclined to do it.
But why do these people just have, I'm asking a really naive, stupid question maybe, I know, but why do these people have these expectations with so much confidence, whereas we don't have the confidence to ask for the money or worth of in money, the worth of what we do in money. Like, I mean, why the heck, I mean, they didn't just come up and decided that it wasn't worth anything, money-wise. I mean, I think they grew up to be like that, probably. It's a culture. It doesn't just pop up like this. Huh?
But I think it's also like that. Reputation is very, very important in the whole artistic world, and getting paid a bit less but having your artwork there being supremely good and exactly the way you wanted it is much more valuable
It's that inherent
in
value.
your head. It's much more valuable
yeah.
than getting paid more, but
Yeah.
having your artwork like
See,
almost there.
there is a different way of. I mean, there's some decouple thingy in
But
our.
I was also thinking, because when you're more departing from like your inner self,
Yeah.
and how, because for me, I really recognize this, like putting yourself on the last thing and the things to make the artwork nice on the first, like
Yeah.
technical things. And I was also thinking maybe it also has to do with like the art not being, or I would say it's not really like measurable as money is. So it's also about the nature as from of money and quantification and like how you can express it in hard.
Yeah. Hard numbers.
And we don't want to measure our art.
Yeah,
We
I
don't want
know.
to say it's exactly
Yeah.
this. So it's
Right.
like a essential.
It's both priceless and valueless at the same time.
Yeah, basically because we can't put a price on it, it makes it valueless in the system. I mean, then you have to adjust your way around it so that you actually are. Yeah, that's the thing. It's hard thing about it for us, but.
We're basically approaching the last, say, 5 minutes of.
Are you gonna
session.
cut it over again?
No.
Well,
I just want
that's
to
You like that?
maybe sort of slowly diverge to the closing remarks. So, or closing remarks. Well, just so we know, like 5-minute bell. I hate moderating, but.
Sometimes it helps me to think about the time I have to spend to
Yeah,
create
that's a
something.
good one.
And when I write down my hours, then I can ask for money because I spent a lot of time.
Yeah.
And then you.
But this is the thing, like I am afraid to sound wrong, but this is something that I realize myself as well. That's what I'm saying. Like we always, when we talk about is money, whether it's an institution level, whether on a personal level, we just always call it, we are asking for it. Like it's somewhere and we're asking for money. There is a lot of money there. When are we going to stop looking at it as this object that we have to ask for? Like we're earning it, hey? I mean, we're earning it. What we do is work as well. Like what we do as art, like craft. It's also we are earning it in the system. Like if you put it into translate it into the current system where you go to work and get your salary or whatever. I mean, you can make very crudely, obviously. But I personally am realizing that is indicating something, that we're asking for money. I mean,
Like,
you know what I mean?
I think that's part of the reason that, for so long, I mean, arts funding from the governments in Europe, I mean, it looks like a mecca compared to the United States.
Yeah.
And I think that part of that is because, European cultures, they have this distinct cultural identity, and the arts are a very important part of that. And so that at a very institutional level, that was built in as being something that the government will fund. I think that's why it went by the wayside in the United States a long time ago, because we don't have much of a distinct cultural identity. But I think that that's one thing that's kind of being whittled away, is that inherent value that we see was actually at a very high institutional level, at least in Europe at one point. And perhaps that might be what's in danger now. But I know you started everything with a very particular issue, and going back to that.
Well, it's still quite on topic, I guess. Yeah.
May I add something?
Yes, please.
And I think this is a good thought, and that's what European countries should be actually proud of, this whole cultural heritage. That is at the moment sort of cut down, and I was surprised when it was cut down that as far as I followed up press and so on, there was no resistance. Am I wrong? Or there was no scream out there? Yeah, where are all the artists getting all those stichting money, foundation money.
Start.
Where are they? But they weren't. There was no lobby. There was no voice in the newspaper, as far as I.
Well, there was a protest.
Was it?
There
It
was
was
a
called the Mars there beschaving. They did this.
That was not
Yeah.
the road.
I
March,
did, that was
but-
the stupidest thing I thought that could have ever happened.
Why?
Because I just thought the whole Mars ter Beschaving and the schreeuw om cultuur
Yeah.
gave such a bad image. The way it was organized, I thought it gave a very, very bad image of the entire cultural scene. That's just my own opinion.
What do you? I have slightly different views, so I would like
Yeah,
you to
well, like,
elaborate on that.
This was like 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and
No. Yeah.
2 years, 2000.
1.5
2
years.
years
A year ago.
Once. One.
Anyway, a while
Last
back.
year.
And when the things were
Last
kind
year,
of
right?
changing, considering the budget cuts and everything was kind of getting communicated, and there was a very big part of the Netherlands that this organization was formed that started this thing called the schreeuw om cultuur. That means like the scream for culture. And so on one day in November, everyone in all these cities, bigger cities in the Netherlands, came together and screamed for culture, like literally screamed. And I don't know, but that was something I didn't. Did you?
I think I like it because this is the first time people actually make some noise, try to be visible.
Yeah,
Okay, this protest culture is not part of Dutch culture. You know? That's why I probably think that people's first reaction is like, oh, why am I going to walk? And it's just weird. I mean, I am biased because I come from Turkey. I mean, that's what we do every day. But, but I mean, it wasn't really well organized. I can understand that, but I think protest being on the street or whatever is sort of a last resort, and it was trying to be done in a very civilized way, but it ended up pretty bad.
That's why I just think.
But that's not because of. That's what happens in protests. At least that's what I accept again because of my background. But I don't think it was because it was a protest. Because it was handled badly by the protesters or anything. I think whoever has been there trying to do whatever they think right. That they just did.
Well, the thoughts behind it, I totally agree with.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not what I was against at all. I'm not against this at all. It's just that I just didn't get the. I don't know how to really express
It
what
was
I.
too friggin' nice. It was.
What?
It was not a protest at all. Like the. I mean,
Yeah.
to say
Okay. Thank
It's a
you.
walk.
That's kind of
But
maybe what I was
I think-
aiming for, but
I
it was
think
just too.
Yeah.
It was too gezellig,
Yeah, it was.
and that was
But
not. You know,
because you don't have, but I cannot imagine it happening like in Mediterranean countries, like people really going for
No,
it.
but the perception is really wrong
Is
because
it?
that the to say that Dutch
are
that
pretty
protest
good
is
at
not in Dutch
protesting.
culture.
Like
I mean,
69, man.
Yeah, I know, but that was a long time ago.
yeah,
Yeah, well,
You
it's
don't
not
always do it
everywhere.
often.
But then, do
I
you
mean-
have to do it again? That's-
Losing the proper energy to do protesting on a relevant level is symptomatic to what's happening to our country in the last decade
Yeah,
and a half.
That's,
you know?
okay, then maybe that was where I'm wrong. I associated it with general Dutch attitude, but maybe it's kind of a recent
Well, I mean,
thing.
you're right. You're right in your in putting it like that, but it's.
But I do get it.
Yeah, it's really a pity that this. I mean, even the name like Mars ter Beschaving.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there's maybe playing devil's advocate. On the other hand, right after the Mars ter Beschaving, there was this big gathering in The Hague, and some people spoke, blah blah blah. And afterwards, some went on to go to the second chamber and really protest there, and it ended up with this bizarre police intervention and I don't know what. And for me, that kind of killed the whole thing. Like you're doing a Mars ter Beschaving, and it ends up with police and I don't know, bats and shit like that, and escalating something while you want to communicate civilization.
That's
Part of the civilized way
I
of.
think it has nothing to do with this thing we're talking about, because it happens every week.
Yeah, but
on this scale.
it was
so this is
last week I did read from the Secretary of Culture, like Holbe that guy. Where he mentioned that some of the cultural cuts might have been saved if the cultural institutions had
Behave.
better communicated why they were relevant.
Okay, good.
I don't know what happened behind
Yeah.
both
This is a whole
things,
different
but
meeting.
there will probably be
Yeah,
there were
right.
there
Yeah.
were a lot of
Yeah.
lobbying, and there was a lot of like
We're
discussion
hearing it,
between governments and
Political,
institutions, and everybody was really traveling everywhere. I know a few people who've been like really talking to the not very well, but I know them, and I know they really worked really hard in the last days after this, and for a couple of months. So I think there was a big lobby, but I think the government was just made the choice.
Already.
Yeah, they
That
already
was the
had, it was
plan.
too late.
Didn't Rutte say last week or the week before that one of the highlights of his period as prime minister was the shock effect that he established in the cultural sector?
Yeah.
That was one of the highlights of the policy of the last year and a half.
That's silly.
And people really tried. So I don't
Think about what that means. It's like
Yeah.
really perverse.
Yeah.
All right. I think with that,
We're wrapping it.
Nice.
we'll get to the end of this meeting. Thank you all
Yeah.
for being here and talking. And I might think we could work out some ideas of maybe turning these ideas into something more interesting. I wouldn't know how or what, but yeah, maybe just talking is just talking. And yeah, well, anyway, thanks, and until next time. Maybe it would be interesting to further elaborate on this, on the ideas that.
Yeah, I
came
think it's a
across
pretty
here.
big subject.
Yeah,
I think you can cut it down to smaller
Segments.
Have you already thought of like what could come next after this while you're here? Let's pick your brain. Or I mean, if you don't have an answer, it's fine.
Well, yeah, perhaps.
Sorry?
Next meeting at Worm.
Sure.
Well,
Then why? Yeah, that's good.
we will not say no to that.
if
You
you
apply for some funding for the train tickets.
Awesome.
I'll buy yours, you buy mine.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll make sure there's food and drinks.
But yeah, jokes aside, seriously, I mean, if you're serious in podcast, we'll be there. But if you have anything that could be a follow up on this that popped up into your head and we
Please
didn't have
post
the
it
time.
to the Facebook
Let us
page.
know.
Do you guys have a Facebook page or mailing list? I know I'm kind of out of touch with this, but I'd like to be included.
I can just add you now if you want.
If you have Facebook, we can add you.
Okay.
I think.
Our host doesn't have Facebook.
Oh, don't worry about it.
Or we'll keep you updated on some of
We're doing the.
I have your
We
mail.
can do
so-
email thing.
Business cards.
Great.
Well, that's about it then.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Next,
Oh crap.